Battlefield 2018 is just around the corner, and in this video I'm going to take a look at things that I want to see introduced into Battlefield 2018 from Battlefield 1, and then some things from Battlefield 1 that I don't want to see come anywhere near the new game, and hopefully DICE has the same sort of opinion. Now, some of these things might be open for debate, and if you do want to leave your points down in the comments, feel free to do so. This of course isn't just fact, it's my opinion. Some things in Battlefield 1 aren't to everybody's taste, and I'm going to go through some of those things in this video. And of course people won't agree, as always is the case. But as I mentioned, let me know in the comments, we'll have a bit of a discussion down there. I always enjoy reading what you guys have to say. Now let's start off with one of the major talking points in Battlefield 1 and something that really set it apart from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. This is the weapon variant system. It really is quite a weird one. Variants in Battlefield 1 create great weapon balance and make it easier for devs to have that balance without having to factor in separate attachment changes. We have a lot of attachments in Battlefield 4, and all that really did was force people to keep searching for the most effective loadout that would enable them to microburst and kill at most ranges with an AEK or ACE-21. What this enabled people to do is find the most effective tactic and then just stick with that in their loadout, and essentially you wouldn't use a lot of the other attachments. It also made for some quite stale gameplay when it came to weapon balance, as 90% of people would go for one loadout. The main thing though that I did enjoy about attachments is the ability to customize your weapon. You can do this in Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, even games like Battlegrounds and Escape from Tarkov. All these games allow you to visually see your weapon and then attach different things in order to improve the weapon's performance. I think DICE could have a system that had the weapon variants, but then allowed you to add extra attachments onto your weapon afterwards, such as extended mags or silencers. Let's say the next Battlefield is modern. You would choose a SCAR H, and then the game allows you to add 2 attachments to your weapon, and you picked an extended mag and a vertical grip in order to improve the recoil slightly and of course increase ammo, but then you would be penalised in another way. They could add the variant system into this as well, maybe having 2 types of SCAR H's, so you'd have one SCAR H which was designed for hip firing and one that was designed for ADSing, and that way they've got their balance, but the attachments could then add an additional penalty and reward system that would change the stats just slightly. Again, they would have to be very careful with this because you could quite easily end up with one gun that is the god gun, especially when considering different attachments and different combinations of attachments would create a whole load more variation in the game, which is great in terms of customization and replayability, but also a lot more difficult to balance. Next up, we're going to take a very quick look at maps. I've made videos in the past outlining my opinion on maps in Battlefield 1. Basically, I believe that more urban maps are needed. Now, I'm not saying that in Battlefield 1 we don't have enough urban maps. I think there are quite a few. Unfortunately, my favourite game mode, Frontlines, isn't placed on most of these maps, which is a shame, especially the DLC ones. That being said, I think maps such as Amiens and the main part of Ballroom Blitz and maybe the massive cathedral on Tsaritsyn, these things are awesome. DICE does it really, really well. And it's a shame that quite a lot of the maps in Battlefield 1, like the Somme, have really cool flags on, like the buildings at the very back of the Somme map. However, most of the gameplay takes place in open fields, which, however realistic this is, and whether they're trying to say that this happened in history, so that's what we're going to do, I don't care for any of that stuff. It's a video game. You're supposed to have the genre and the setting, and then you make the gameplay as engaging as possible within that setting. And I think urban maps naturally lend themselves to more engaging and dynamic gameplay purely because there's more hard cover, and that is why when I did favourite maps in Battlefield 1, and I did a straw poll to the community with, I think it's on 600 or 700 votes at the minute, Amiens is by far and away the best and most favourite map. This is purely because of the cover system and the fact it's a fairly balanced map with a lot of variety. When melee was mentioned in Battlefield 1 and they were saying that there's a new melee system, I was pretty excited. Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 certainly do not have a good melee system. Maybe it's fun, the fact you can counter knife and all this, but it's just really a mess with the animations. In Battlefield 1 they certainly fixed the animations and the sound. It was a very satisfying feeling when you walloped someone around the head with a shovel. However, the lock-on nature of the entire system and the fact you can attack from any angle is really no good at all. Melee should be only effective from the rear, and attacking from the front should yield very little. I do think DICE could keep up the different types of melee weapons, as being able to break windows and barbed wire with certain types of melee weapons and having a trade-off for speed maybe versus damage is really awesome. It's almost its own mini-game. Finally, I think DICE should really change the melee weapons so you have to change to them as you would your secondary weapon. This would completely remove panic melee from the game, and the only thing I think would hold it back is the amount of buttons you have on a controller. Would you be able to switch to your melee weapon? But I just think you can cycle through your weapons, primary, secondary, and then you hit somebody with your melee. Same goes for the bayonet. I'm really not a fan of it. I know it was World War I and they had to add some things that really related to the World War I time period, but for me the bayonet is just not something I enjoy using. It was fun for the start, but it's definitely not tactical or skillful. I hope to see the bayonet gone in the next game, or at the very least nerfed so you have to switch out to the bayonet or charge it up before using it, in the same way I mentioned with the melee. This would remove panic spamming, which is certainly something I dislike very much. Now for quite a controversial topic, suppression. Personally, I hate suppression in video games. I hate it the most in Battlefield 1, but I do understand it has to be there in order to balance out weapon variants and prevent people from taking a gun that will do everything in all situations. Suppression should not make your bullets divert randomly to other targets, in my opinion. What it should do is blur your vision slightly and make it harder to hit your target. The one you are aiming at in the distance, they shoot back, you get suppressed. What you should be doing is still looking to take them out, but it should be slightly harder. Not firing bullets and, oh no, you got unlucky RNG, your bullet's gone over to the right. Oh no, your bullet's gone over to the left and killed someone else. We've seen it before with Ravik. He's posted many videos showcasing how random this thing can be. His crosshairs are not on the target, but suppression drags his crosshairs onto the target and he gets the kill. Usually with people like me, it's the other way around. My crosshairs on the target and then it drags it to the side and I miss. This is rubbish. I don't enjoy it at all, and it rewards players for missing and bipodding and firing 100 rounds downrange with their LMGs. A good player that is suppressed should still be able to hit their targets if they concentrate enough, whilst with the current system, suppression forces you to miss and relocate. This would be fine, but a lot of maps don't allow you to do so because they're quite open, so you have to kill your target, otherwise you will die. Grenades and random explosions. There are far too many grenades in Battlefield 1. Maybe you enjoy that sort of thing, but for me it's just off the charts. It really takes away from the infantry gameplay. Just take a look at the amount of kills people get with explosives in Battlefield 1. It's absolutely loads. It was even more so on release, and then they nerfed it back, proving that the grenade spam was just too much at the start. The same goes for BF4, and in all honesty, with the C4, on Operation Locker you can run around with C4 and take out tons of players, which is no good in my opinion. Admittedly, it's fun from time to time, but the amount of kills people do get with C4 often places C4 at the top of their weapons. That's their most used weapon, which is ridiculous in my opinion. I think in BF1, the mindless grenade throwing is slightly worse, however. Tone it down and concentrate on creating engaging gameplay, not mindless cinematic grenade spam. I guess they did it because in World War I there was a lot of grenades, a lot of explosions, and having all these explosions and effects showing off what your game can do often covers up the fact that it doesn't do other things well, such as infantry gameplay. Maybe change it so you have to pull out a grenade like you would your secondary grenade, and that would take longer and prevent people from spamming nades. Again, linking back to that melee thing, we're removing the panic spamming. Getting stuck on the scenery on maps such as Argonne Forest is no fun at all. They really need to work on that, because in a competitive environment where people really concentrate on their positioning, a little movement to the right or the left can slow your character down and cause you to lose the fight. In a casual shooter where everyone's chilling out and playing, it's not a massive issue. I haven't had too much trouble with it myself, but I do know if they're going to try and create anything slightly competitive, back in the days of BF4 when you had 8v8 and stuff like that, that sort of thing, you cannot have maps where you're getting stuck on. Again, it's something that should be fixed for the casual environment as well, because it's just quality control. You need to get that stuff sorted. Now looking at DLC cycles and the Premium Pass. The DLC cycle for Battlefield 4 was very nice. The DLC cycle for Battlefield 1 was not so much. There were too many gaps between DLCs, it was not laid out very well at all, and especially with the Turning Tides that was split into two, and then Apocalypse that was clearly rushed out right with Turning Tides. You can tell there are some issues over there at DICE in terms of the amount of time they have. Their time constraints are probably limited with what EA are telling them to do. They're working already on the new trailer for the next game. Everything's accelerated and sped up. The main game's brought out, and then they're trying to rush out all these DLCs, getting people to buy as much as possible. I really think that the DLC should be free, maps should be free, weapons I think should be free, but often they will need people to buy the DLC and keep the money coming in, so maybe the weapons won't be free. I really do think though that having maps free to play, like they have in Battlefront 2, is very, very important in order to keep the community together. Maybe we could look at customization through skins and cosmetics. Not something I enjoy at all, but I do prefer that to having maps which are hidden behind a paywall. Now on to Battlelog. Please, please, please bring Battlelog back. Now I'm not saying you need to have it in a web browser, but having it in the same style as we had the Battlefield 4 Battlelog is very important. I want to be able to see how many people are playing on the server. I want to be able to click on people's profiles, see if they're a cheater, see if they're a good player, see if I know them. There's so much that Battlelog offered in its old state, and the new system is absolutely awful. Linked in with Origin that doesn't allow me to join my friends. I have so many friends I don't even see online, and I'm on Discord talking to them in the same game, and I can't join on them. They can't join my party. I have to leave the party to join a game. It's an absolute shambles, and this probably isn't the fault of DICE. It's probably just Origin. I don't know what to suggest with that sort of stuff, apart from the fact that they need to fix it, because it is one of these things that really waters down the quality of Battlefield. Now on to a couple more things that I think need to go in the game. Elites need to disappear. God weapons, like we had in Battlefield 4, are also silly, however they're slightly better than the elites. I think maybe having a system where elites were used as a behemoth to turn the tide in the game is a far better idea than just having them randomly spread around the map as assets. Behemoths, again, I have the same opinion. It's a gimmick from Battlefield 1. We saw Levolution in BF4. We've had behemoths in BF1. There'll be something else in the new Battlefield game. I don't think behemoths will stick around. The sweet spot mechanic, I don't like it. It needs to go. I think you need to go back to the sniping that we had in Hardline, maybe even in Battlefield 4. We'll see what they do because, of course, the weapon variant system and weapon balance has changed everything up. But for me, the fast bullet velocity doesn't really require a sweet spot mechanic on top of it. The scout class is already incredibly powerful. Hence, the reason they didn't update the sniper weapons with the TTK 2.0 patch. All the other weapons were buffed. The snipers weren't, bar the M1903 experimental and the Russian trench. Game modes, Conquest needs to go back to the old mode. Frontlines in Battlefield 1 is a 10 out of 10 game mode. Operations is also fantastic. Keep them in the new game. Make them the three main game modes: Conquest, Operations and Frontlines. I think Frontlines is probably the best chance of competitive in Battlefield, although they're certain that Incursions is going to be something. Frontlines is fine. You can change up the amount of players you have on a team, change up the map balance a little bit and add some things, put some real time into making it a perfect map. But Frontlines is perfectly fine. You know, you've got flags that people fight for. It's all about killing the enemy and getting people on points and arming objectives. Really fun. Could be a great 8v8 game mode, maybe even a 5v5 game mode. I don't really know. I'm not a competitive player, but I think that's probably the best mode. And it's also awesome just in the normal aspect of the game. Vehicles. Go back to vehicle balance and mechanics like we had in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. BF1 is far too simple and requires no skill whatsoever in things such as tanking. In order to succeed in a tank, you just camp and farm from a distance or squad up with loads of people and smash the enemy with pure numbers. In older Battlefields, you had to use tactics to succeed or you died very, very quickly. As someone who has had tons of hours in vehicles in BF1, BF3 and BF4, I can say, from my opinion, that BF1 is by far the worst. The planes are okay, and I know a lot of people who play in the planes and it is definitely a skilled vehicle to use. However, nowhere near the levels of Battlefield 4, and that's not an insult to people who play in BF1 in the planes. You can be really good in both BF4 and BF1. I just know that in BF1, dogfighting is not the same, the speed control is completely different, and in my opinion, the skill ceiling is just not as high in Battlefield 1 in all vehicles. I know that World War 1 is difficult to try and have fun vehicle balance in, and I'll give DICE a pass for that, but if the next Battlefield is World War 2 and they mess it up, I will be very, very annoyed. Barbed wire and flames, visual only please. Barbed wire can hurt you, but in Battlefield 1 it's far too common and causes you to get stuck a lot. The flames are ridiculous. It's almost like your soldier is doused in petrol before he goes out to fight. I've spoken about this before. Absolutely ridiculous. The fact that you can lose 10 health just by standing on some part of the environment that's not even very obvious, and then when you get into a fight, you're 10 HP down, and that'll often lose you the fight. Now in this video, I have gone through a lot of things that I want removing, not so many that I want keeping, but let's just highlight the things I do really like in the game. The weapon balance, I think, is fantastic. That doesn't mean to say I like the weapon gunplay, I just like the balance, the fact that every class has a specific role, and you can see that with the fact that it's around 25% per class in terms of player usage. I also enjoy a lot of the maps, the urban maps that is, and I also really like some game modes such as Frontlines and Operations. I think they should definitely be included. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have a different opinion to me, leave your comments down below. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.